Hi, everyone. Sorry that we're running a little bit behind. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope that you found the correct link. My name is Chris Linder, and I'm an assistant professor in the College Student Affairs Administration graduate program and also the program coordinator for the doctoral program. And with me tonight, we have two doctoral students. Can you introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jen Brenchler, and I'm a part-time doc student in the program, and I also work full-time as director of the Center for Leadership and Service.
I'm Joan Collier. I'm a third-year doctoral candidate in the program, and my assistantship is with University Housing.
And tonight, we just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking with you all about the PhD program. There is a chat box, so it would be helpful for us if you could introduce yourself in the chat box. So let us know what your name is, and maybe if you're working at an institution right now, let us know where you're working or where you're going to school. And then also, as we go throughout the session, if you have questions, that's a great place to put those questions as well. I'm also going to share with you a PowerPoint to kind of guide us through part of the discussion, though we will also come back and you'll see us in a few minutes. But we at least wanted to provide a PowerPoint with some information on it. It doesn't have a lot of information because we wanted to focus specifically on, we wanted to try and cover information that is not otherwise on the website. The website does have a lot of really helpful information about the logistics of applying, some of the technical aspects of the program. So we're certainly happy to talk about that if you have those kinds of questions, but there's also excellent resources on the website. So here is a picture of the students in our doctoral program, or at least most of them. The program at UGA is a program that has been around for a long time. It's one of the oldest in the country. Our program was established in 1967 by Dr. Ted Miller, and it started out specifically as a concentration in counseling and student personnel services. We did start the master's program first, and then a concentration in the PhD and MA and the EDD programs emerged later. We have had some fluctuation throughout the years in terms of the types of programs that we've offered, but right now in the College Student Affairs Administration program, we have a PhD, which is the doctoral program that's on the Athens campus. We have a master's in education, which is also on the Athens campus, and then we have an EDD, which is an online hybrid program that is specifically designed for full-time working professionals in the community. We have approximately 40 to 50 PhD students in the doctoral program at any given time. And in the program, we have both full-time students and part-time students. So we do have about half of our students come to school full-time and are most of the time on graduate assistantships. And then we also have a good number of students who work full-time in student affairs somewhere at UGA or in one of the USG system schools, or possibly at an institution in Atlanta. The program is housed within the Department of Counseling and Human Development, which is in the College of Education. And we have 7 full-time faculty in the program. Right now, we are currently searching for one of those faculty positions. And so if you go on our website right now, you'll see that we have 6 faculty, but we are in the process of hiring an additional faculty member right now. The current faculty, like I said, there are 6 of us. I did create a slide that has our research interests on it. But again, this is something you can find on the website. There's a lot of information about each of the faculty members. Our faculty are very active in research. We're also all very active in professional associations. You'll probably recognize some of the names of our faculty from being leaders in NASPA and ACPA and through CAS. Through AFA, the Association of Fraternity Advisors. We have a number of us that serve on editorial boards and serve as editors and associate editors for journals. And so you do, at UGA, we do have a very active faculty that are engaged both on campus with our students, doing a lot of mentoring of our current doctoral students, and then also bringing students with us to conferences and to present at conferences, and supporting students in doing their own research and presenting at conferences. So that's one of the unique aspects of the program, is that we do have a large faculty for a student affairs program and are very active and visible in scholarship and professional service. So one of the things we want to talk about is, what does it mean to get a PhD? And so Joan and Jen are going to talk briefly from their perspectives about what it has meant for them to get a PhD.
So for me, getting a PhD, coming in meant that I was going to get a terminal degree. I was going to be able to advance my career and learn more about myself in some specific content areas. Now that I'm closer to getting my PhD, that I'm in my dissertation work, getting a PhD means that I have the skills now to conduct research that impacts our field, that impacts people, that can, in a professional sense, move me forward as I need to, but also means that I have the luxury and freedom to think in very large ways about different systems, about kind of ways of being. And getting a PhD means that I have some legitimization within a larger context, that there are people within higher education that understand that I am smart. I don't think I need that, but for some people I do. And so this PhD allows me to have some legitimacy in places that I otherwise might not have it, and also gives me a lot of tools to further things that need some advancement.
Just to add to that, I would agree with a lot of things Joan said. I think as a woman in this field, I initially thought about getting this PhD because I figured I would need it if I wanted to continue to advance. And I also want to add that I looked at it as a very mystified process, and was very worried about would I even be able to do it. So having been in it for a year now, I would agree. I think a lot of what I've come through so far has taught me to think more critically. And I think the advantage of being part-time and being able to work full-time gives me access to start using what I'm learning like right now. So a lot of things that we've talked about in class, projects that I've worked on in class, I've been able to put to use in my job right now. So what it means for me isn't just about, like you said, getting this terminal degree, but also learning about things that I can use right now. And I have used them with students. I've used them outside of the classroom and in my communities that don't have anything to do with UGA. So it's been very helpful in that way as well.
Thank you, Joan and Jen. If that raised any questions for folks, go ahead and add them in the text box, and we'll answer those in a few minutes. We're going to go back and talk a little bit more about some of the specifics of the doctoral program, maybe what you can expect in terms of the academic part of the program, as well as the outside of the classroom kinds of experiences that you might have in the program here at CSAA. So in terms of the academics, there's a few things to note. So there are four major academic components of the program. The first one, of course, is our coursework. So students take core coursework and student affairs administration courses, and that's of 30 credits. Now there's some variance there depending on the student, because if a student comes in not having a previous experience or a previous master's degree in student affairs, there are some additional courses they'll need to take as prereqs to some of the doctoral level classes, but there are 30 core required hours for the program. There are 15 hours of research coursework, so we do emphasize both qualitative and quantitative research. And so you'll take a general intro to research course and then 2 qualitative classes and then 2 quantitative classes. Many of our students take additional research coursework. There's an opportunity to get a qualitative research certificate if you take 2 more qualitative research classes, and so that's something that some of our students do. Then there are also 6 credits that are elective credits, and students will select a concentration area and take coursework directly focused in that. And then, of course, there are additional research hours that are directly related to your dissertation and your publishable paper research, which is what comes next. So the publishable paper is an individual research project that students do on their own with their support of their advisor prior to starting the dissertation. The purpose of the publishable research paper is to give students experience actually going out and conducting research on a smaller scale than they would for their dissertation. In many ways to get practice, to sort of figure out what are the bumps along the way, what are some of the things they can anticipate prior to writing that dissertation. And then we, of course, have, after the publishable paper and after students are through with almost all of their coursework, they take preliminary exams. And preliminary exams are a process by which we ask students to synthesize the information they've learned in their courses so far and demonstrate their understanding of the literature and the what they've learned in all of their classes. And then, of course, the culminating experience, academic experience, is writing the dissertation. Students do a 3-chapter prospectus, which means they tell their committee, this is what I think I'd like to research, and this is why I want to research it. It comes in the form of a literature review, a methodology, and an overview of the problem that they're trying to address through their research. So those are the major academic components of the program. There's additional research and teaching. There's additional research and teaching opportunities in the program, and it sounds like we might be having trouble with the PowerPoint. So I'll just talk through these. I'm not sure what's happening with those, but there are additional research and teaching opportunities in the program. So students also participate on research teams with faculty members throughout the program, and then every student completes a teaching internship where they teach a master's level class with one of the faculty members. And then after they do that teaching internship, there are opportunities to do additional kinds of teaching in the program, maybe through the student affairs minor that we have at UGA, or doing even a second teaching internship with a faculty member. Of course, there is a lot of mentoring and advising that happens in the program. So every doctoral student is assigned an advisor when they get here. And throughout the program, students may change advisors depending on if their research interests change or if they find a person that they may work better with than they were originally assigned. And then, of course, there are lots of relationships between students and faculty that maybe aren't advising relationships, but they're still mentoring type relationships. So students may get on research teams with faculty members. They may have a common professional interest. And so there are lots of opportunities for that, which is also a major part of our program. We really try and work from a community of practice model, meaning that as a doctoral program, we come together every other week in a research seminar where we talk about current issues going on in the field. We gather to talk about what's going on with the students. It's an opportunity for our current doc students to practice presenting their research prior to going to a conference, to get feedback from their peers. There's a lot of opportunity for students to both connect with people that they came into the program at the same time as, but then also to connect with a number of doctoral students at different places in the program. So those are the formal pieces that we wanted to introduce. Are there questions from folks that they'd like to hear from me or from Jen or from Joan?
Is the program TAP approved?
The question is the program TAP approved? Yes.
Up to 9 credits each semester you can get approval for through the TAP program.
And for those of you who don't know, TAP is Tuition Assistance Program, and it's a program that's available for USG employees. So anybody who works in one of the USG system schools. Are there more questions?
Keep going.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything that you would like to add, Joan or Jen?
Far as the research topics, so I've been able to continue work on a research project with friends at another at two other institutions and a faculty member at a different institution. And so that research is separate from the research that I do here at the University of Georgia, but it all works together for my agenda. I've also been able to take a project that we started out in a class this summer in Dr. Linda's class, and a colleague of mine, Brittany Williams, we've been able to take a project and move it into not quite a research agenda, but definitely a practical application of our knowledge. And so that's been really fun to see research become more than just something that I do while I'm in class, but let it be practical, because oftentimes I find that our research sometimes gets stagnant or it gets stuck in the academy. And this is one way for us to get that research out to everyday people who may or may not have our language, but who can find value in it, who can use it to empower themselves. So you can do a lot with your research.
Would you call that project activism or scholar activism?
It's like scholar activism, resistance. There's some nuance on language, but
yes.
Yeah. But absolutely, it's a lot of fun, and it's like tangible, practical applications of knowledge transfer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I would add about research that when I started the program, that wasn't the part I was most excited about. I was more excited about class content and just good discussion and lots of, dedicated time to reading and that sort of thing. But even in my first year, being a part of a research team was really helpful in understanding what research looks like. I guess I didn't know just how sort of messy it is. I thought that there was a very step-by-step process, and there's certainly, a place to start and a process by which you can do it. But to really get in immediately in the program and get to sit down and start reviewing data and learning how to code and pulling out themes. And so by doing that and kind of overcoming these misconceptions about what research is and what the process looks like, I'm actually engaged in a research project outside of the program, kind of like what you're talking about. Somebody came to me and said, we'd really like to do this research on your students. Would you like to help? And so now I'm working on a project to better understand our students' needs around leadership and self-efficacy. So it's like, even though I don't even have the degree yet, I'm already doing all of this great research and getting to be a real partner in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say have been the most, or not the most, what would you say have been some of the parts of the program that surprised you that you've been able to integrate sort of immediately into whatever your work experience is?
So I'm currently doing my assistantship. I quit my full-time job to come back to school. I was just not here for that hustle. So I'm a full-time student, and so as such, there are times when you have to kind of make sure that you're making use of all that time. And so one thing that I was able to do was do a study abroad on the winter break between, fall 15 and spring 16. And so that was a surprise. I wasn't know if I was going to be able to get that in while I was here, and I was able to do it and bring faculty members with me, and another colleague of mine who was back where we went to doing her dissertation work, which surprised me too. She's the one who kind of got us all together. We were able to do that. And just a working practical piece is, again, making scholarship practical and useful, so closing in that loop. I think what I really thought I was going to be doing was researching something that, kind of made sort of sense, but you just get to the end of it. And I'm realizing more and more that there's not really an end point. There's just I'm here right now. Let me do something with this. And then as I'm still working through what this is, I have all this other stuff going on. And so trying to make the work more practical for folks in my church, for my parents who don't understand this process at all, who just know their daughter's smart and she's going to be Dr. Collier one day. I have to make it practical. And so making it practical has actually been a really fun, rewarding part.
We have a question about women's studies certificates and things like that.
Okay. Ooh, that's fun.
I think the thing that surprised me most, I only really had my master's program to compare to. And so I think coming into the program and having graduated from my master's program like a few years ago, Just a few. I remember there was a lot of focus on theory and just a lot of reading, and I don't remember it being very practical, but coming into this program and having been working now for a few years, I have a lot of experience to tie into what I'm reading and what I'm thinking about, what I'm writing about. And so I think the thing that surprised me the most is how relevant everything feels now as opposed to before. And so I think having some experience, and I also like that I get to continue to work. It's a lot to balance, but it's definitely doable. And I think it gives me a constant place to apply what I'm learning, and it gives me lots of good stuff to bring into class to talk about.
Yes, I concur with that, Jen. You do bring a lot of that to class, so thank you.
Yeah.
We got a question about whether folks can do a women's studies certificate with their degree. Yes, we did talk about the qualitative certificate earlier. There are a number of other certificates around campus at the graduate level, and it's certainly something that students are welcome to pursue. It may add some time to a student's timeline, so we also tell students that this program technically can be done in 3 years. It's very quick. We do year-round summer courses. So students will be in class fall, spring, summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring, if they want to graduate in 3 years. It is a very tight timeline for writing a dissertation in 3 years, especially for students who choose to do a qualitative dissertation. It's very tight simply because qualitative data analysis takes so long. And so while we tell people they can do it in 3 years, we also are realistic with folks and let you know that many students choose to stay for 4 years, and that's usually when they are able to do these additional certificates, like the teaching. There is a certificate in teaching at UGA that we've had students do in the past. There's the qualitative certificate. There is a graduate certificate in women's studies, and that's something that a student could consider adding to their program as well.
Good stuff.
Are there other questions, Quasia? Okay. Okay. What did she say?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. She's coming.
Can you talk about the GRE scores?
Yes. So another question that we get commonly is the question about the GRE scores. And I know this is a very frustrating answer, but the answer is it depends. We really do. I know it sounds so cliche, but it's so real. We really are looking at a whole package when we look at people's applications. So we're looking at that personal statement. We're looking at people's recommendation letters. We're certainly looking at their professional experience at the doctoral level. Having some professional experience is an expectation for this program. And so most students come in with about 3 to 5 years experience, though some students do come in with a little bit less professional experience. But it really is about the whole package and what the person brings as a whole. So it's really difficult to discuss specific GRE scores. Jen and Joan, how have you fit this into your already busy lives? What have been the things that you've done? What have you learned about what it means to be a student in addition to whatever else you were already doing?
I think for me, it started out as a reframe of not something I have to do or something I have to work in. I really, when I made the decision to do this, and I talked to people about, applying and wanting to do this program, knowing that I would be doing it part-time, I had to look at it as an opportunity and professional development and an investment in my own learning and an investment really for, the people I supervise and the students that I work with. So that's where I started. It doesn't always feel that way. There are definitely some nights where I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But for the most part, I look at my schedule and I really try to map out what's going to be due and what's going to be needed and how much reading. And I rely on my support network. So my partner, my staff, my supervisor even, and I may not get it all done every week, but I think over the grand scheme of things, I'm able to work it in and say, again, just like I would invest, I have 2 children, so just like I would invest in them, I set aside time for them. I invest in this, so I set aside time, for this.
I'm a full-time student, so I treat my schoolwork like my job, and so I have felt that at some points in time, people think that because you're full-time, you have all this free time. There's no such thing as free time when you're a doc student. I think once you're an adult, there's not really a thing called free time. It's just what you make time for. And so on a week-to-week basis, I typically get up, do some kind of work, either at my assistantship or have a whole, I guess, bullet journal of what I need to get done for the week. And then I start checking stuff off and going through it. I still make time for spiritual practice. I have to make time for home. I tried to, home for me is in Atlanta, like an hour and a half away. This past spring, I tried to do the whole, I'm just going to buckle down and just only do schoolwork and cut out friends. I was newly partnered and he was barely getting some time. And this just was not a good outcome for me. So reestablishing that that's what I need to do, it means that I have to take that 3 years and make it 3 years in the summer, and that's okay. So how I make do with all that I have is to reconsider what it is I really want. And so I want to be healthy when I leave here. I want to be happy when I leave here. I want to be Dr. Collier when I leave here. And so all 3 of those things need to happen. And so balance, depending on the week, looks different. If I'm on call because I work for housing, my work for school might dwindle a little bit because I have low-key anxiety when I'm on duty for a week at a time. But then that means that other weeks I just have to hustle a little bit more. And so I have writing groups. I'm an extrovert. I can't be by myself all the time. It doesn't work. So I have friends who I write with. We have headphones, we write. If I want to do fellowship, I host dinner on Sundays or whatever day, and we do work. And that's kind of what it looks like until I'm finished, and then I can do whatever I want to do, which is adults again.
Yes.
Just a different fashion.
With more pay.
Coins.
Yes.
What semester do you admit students?
We admit students in the fall semester, so the admissions applications are due in late fall, and then we do an interview. We review the applications, and then we do interviews in February for admission into the program, and then students start the following fall.
This one is specific to, I probably said this one louder so people can hear. Someone is wondering, can you talk about the process, the decision to go full-time?
Sure can.
What was it like not having a full salary?
Full-time?
And then are there assistantships? So then
Yeah. Okay. Hello, person or people who asked. I chose to resign my full-time position because I really want to have time to focus on being a scholar. I had been a practitioner for 5 years, thought that was good experience across a lot of different areas. And since this is the last time I'll be in school for real, I really wanted to fully enjoy that. I should also say I'm a low-key nerd geek, so I love just thinking. And so for me, this is an opportunity to really like revel around in all of that thinking and all that good stuff. So I knew going into that year, I was going to quit my job when I got in. I was like, please let me get in. I'm getting in, great. So I started doing things like putting money away every month. And I mean, it was student affairs, so I wasn't balling out of control. But what I could do, I put stuff away, okay? I also did my best to get the housing assistantship because part of my benefits are a place to stay on campus I don't pay for, a meal plan, a really nice stipend, and professional development money. And so between my stipend, a place to stay without paying rent, cha-ching, I'm able to make do with what I need to. Now that also means that I can't take a lot of trips all the time. It means I have to cut back. And I'm okay with that negotiation because I'd rather be in school and not having to worry about full-time work than having to negotiate how I get to work and get my school stuff. Because for Joan, that doesn't work. So there are other assistantships out there. They all do not look like housing. I don't know that any of the other ones provide housing. But for the other full-time people in my program who are not in housing, They make cuts where they need to. We definitely group dinner sometimes to save up coins. We room together at conferences. Some of the practices that I had as a practitioner in terms of my money management, I still bring with me. So there's no retirement plan for us to pay into here as doc students, but I still put, my $50 away every month for my retirement, because at some point I'll be working again, and 3 years of time is still 3 years of time. I still put money away in savings, but sometimes I dip into it because Trader Joe's calls. So you make your negotiations where you can. I take out just enough student loan money to cover my fees, which are about $1,100 a semester. And beyond that, I just kind of hustle and use my credit card, but I don't overdo my credit card when my credit score is like, what are you doing? Yeah, we can talk more, I guess, off to the side.
Well, and I'll add that in my office, actually, we support one doc student with an internship there. And there is no housing provided for that, but I want to say the stipend might be a little more. I'm not sure.
Could be.
And so while there is no housing there, again, in the past, doc students have found roommates to help kind of offset that. And I will say the other thing that we try to do is just really help that person think about the use of time. So I know housing is very different. This is not a housing position. There's not really an on-call part with this. Our assistantship actually works with our spring break program and our spring break trips. So does a lot of teaching in that position, but gets to set a schedule. And of course, if I'm in this program, I'm going to approve whatever time that person's going to need to be able to get the work done and to balance that out with the assistantship there as well. So, and I feel like there are a lot of other assistantships across campus that folks are really supportive of.
Yeah, the assistantships at the doctoral level are not as coordinated. So many campuses, including UGA, we have a very coordinated process for master's level assistantships. And so I think many folks in student affairs think of that process when they're thinking about applying for assistantships. But at the doctoral level, it's not as centralized, primarily because we're never quite sure which assistantships are going to be opened. Doctoral students don't have a set of a defined time to graduate, and so those positions fluctuate a lot more than the master's level assistantships. The other thing is that they're not all technically in the Division of Student Affairs. We have many doctoral students that do graduate assistantships in student affairs related areas, so student services in the graduate school. We have a student that's working in the Center for Teaching and Learning. So they're very much the student affairs work, but they're not housed technically in the Division of Student Affairs. So how we work with doctoral students related to that is that we just, after students are admitted, and even before they're admitted, as we know people are interested in graduate assistantships, we start to forward them any position announcements that we see, and then the student just applies individually for that position and interviews directly with the provider. So again, we're not coordinating that process, but we're certainly sharing information with prospective students about assistantships.
How is this program different than the Institute for Higher Education? Or is it different? How does that?
Yeah. The question is, how is this program different than the program in the Institute for Higher Education?
I have a few thoughts on that. I've taken one of my elective courses through the Institute and talked with faculty over there actually a little bit about what does that program look like, and I have some colleagues who've gone through that program. And so I don't have a lot of information, but I think the best way it's been explained to me is that this program is very focused on student affairs and sort of what's going on within the field, and then looks out at the university. And so what is it that we need to know to be good student affairs professionals, and then what do we do to help create a good supportive learning environment for students? Whereas when I've talked with folks in the IHE program, it's more of a sort of hovering over campus and looking at all of the systems in campus. And so the class I took was Finance of Higher Education, which was really fascinating to look at budgets for entire institutions and how they break those things down. And so it gives you a good overview of sort of the system or the institution as a whole, but not maybe so much from the student affairs vantage point.
It's a great description, Jen.
Yeah, thanks.
I think the other difference that I've heard a lot of students who have compared the two programs talk about a heavy emphasis in policy in the Institute, and our program focuses more on administration and student development. So there's a little bit of a difference between policy and administration. So it's what Jen was talking about. Policy is sort of the 10,000-foot view where we're looking at how all the systems within higher education work together, and administration is sort of the practice of engaging in the work, and so really looking at supervision and staffing practices and things that are very specific to practicing what we're talking about, and then also very specific to focusing on student affairs related issues.
And so you mentioned kind of the work experience required, but can you talk about like what the policy is, and then also the internship if you don't meet that?
Yeah. So the question is about the policy related to the work experience and then internship. So there's no set policy. We do look for professional experience that looks different for different people. And so again, we can talk on a one-on-one basis about what you're feeling and what you're thinking about, or look at your application for you. If a student has less than 5 years professional work experience prior to starting the program, then they will do an administrative internship during the program, and that means that they will work, we'll help them find an area of student affairs that they want to learn more about, and we'll connect them with a doctoral level practitioner in that area, and they'll engage in some sort of special project related to that functional area and work directly in an internship with that person for a semester.
Are there any financial aid options outside of TAP and assistantships?
So financial aid options outside of TAP and assistantships are pretty much the standard ones that are available for all graduate students. So of course there are numerous scholarships available through private foundations, through the financial aid office, and so many of our students do apply for financial aid. At the graduate level, financial aid is limited outside of fellowships and assistantships. So certainly there are lots of opportunities, but again, there's not a coordinated, centralized way for us to know what all of those are, and so students work directly with the financial aid office related to financial aid outside of assistantships and TAP.
What type of assistantships?
So the assistantships vary they're in all kinds of different student support related offices on campus. And so like I mentioned earlier, we have the Center for Teaching and Learning assistantship. We have a student in that assistantship this year. We've had students in the Office of Service Learning in the past. We, of course, Jen mentioned in the Center for Leadership and Service. So we have a number of assistantships in the Division of Student Affairs. In housing, I think we have 4 doctoral interns in housing, or 3
over there.
3 or 4.
There's somebody in academic partnerships.
Yeah, so the assistantships are really, they just vary pretty significantly, and they also vary depending on the year. So for example, this year, we're only anticipating 1 opening in housing. The other students in housing are staying in those positions, and so it just varies from year to year which positions are available.
And I've seen people move among assistantships too. So you may come in with one and then decide this isn't really where I want to be, or I want to try something different. And then if another one opens up the next year, I know we've taken folks who decided to leave one assistantship to come into ours. So there is movement even from year to year, if that's something you want to do.
The other thing I would add is that we have 3 assistantships in the department that are administrative assistantships supporting the faculty coordinating the 3 programs. So we have a doctoral student that works with the master's program and Dr. Dean. We have a student who works with the Ph.D. program and me as the program coordinator. And then we have a doctoral student who works with, right now it's Dr. Cooper as the program coordinator for the EDD program. So those are 3 additional assistantships. We typically don't have research assistantships in the student affairs program. However, right now we have a unique opportunity in that Dr. Dean and Dr. Cooper have a contract, which is similar to a grant, that they're working on a major research project in partnership with Emory. And so there are a couple of assistantships available with that as well. So we do have some, again, they fluctuate, they're different every year, but right now for this incoming year, we'll have a research assistantship available, we'll have one of the administrative assistantships available, we'll have the housing one available, and then other ones as they come up. Those are just the 3 that we know to anticipate right now. There's also a graduate assistantship opening in the athletic department. They're looking for someone to start in the summer rather than waiting till the fall. So if anybody's interested in that, that's one that we know we'll be able to share with you soon so that you can apply for that one as well.
What elements are you looking for in a personal statement, and do you want that in APA format?
It's good practice.
Excellent question. What are we looking for in a personal statement, and do we want it in APA format? If you are citing things, yes, please put it in APA format. That would be really helpful. The things that we're looking for in a doctoral personal statement is depth. So making sure that you're very clear about what your interest, why you're interested in this field and where you see yourself going in this field. So one of the things I tell students that makes a really strong application is when they provide specific examples of their areas of interest. So I can't tell you how many times I've read the sentence, I am passionate about working with students. So that is an excellent start. And we need it to go deeper than that. So tell me more. What are you passionate about? What about working with students gets you excited? What are you thinking about related to that? So just providing specific examples of things you've done, things you want to do. Those are really important pieces of a personal statement. At the doctoral level, it's also good to talk a little bit about what you think you're interested in researching. So we certainly don't expect you as an incoming doctoral student to have a defined research agenda. That's not something that's an expectation, but we do expect students to have some intellectual curiosity, some general areas of interest that they're thinking about related to research. What do they think they might want to examine in student affairs? So I'd say those are the big things that we're looking for when we look at personal statements, but yeah. Other questions, Quasia?
I just put it out there for any last questions.
Okay.
You can also just let people know, I mean, I said it in here, but if they would like the slides, since they weren't able to see them all, to put their email in the chat.
Great. If you would like a copy of the slides, since we weren't able to get them all out there, just put your email in the chat and Quasia will send those to you. Again, we apologize for the technical difficulties. We practiced twice before tonight and we still had trouble. And we didn't have any trouble at all during the practice session. So I'm not really sure what happened. And this is our first one, so we're learning. If you have feedback about things that were easy to see or not see, certainly let us know that as well. We'll be happy. It would be helpful information to have.
There was a question about the minimum number of research interests. So I think also like research interests can sound kind of scary sometimes.
That's a good question. So let's talk more about what it means to have a research interest. Jen, when you hear that, what does that mean? What are we talking about?
When I came here, I thought it meant like I had to know like specifically what I wanted. So I came in here with like 10 and it was ridiculous because you're not doing 10. And so I've been able to understand that my research interests are areas that I'm more beyond interested in learning more about, but invested in learning more about. So where do I want to spend my time learning more about, doing research around? And so for me, that ended up being, if I just go off what I'm doing right now, Black women in the academy in terms like misogynoir and social media activism and resistance. That is Christian normativity and Christian privilege on pluralist campuses. That's Black doc student socialization. And then with my research team, it was non-heterosexual students' conceptualizations of spirituality and practice. And that was already pushing it. But just for fun, my other research team is picking up on youth participatory action and rurality, which is the study of ruralness or rural living, and college access.
Yeah, I had no idea when it came time to answer that question. So I thought, what are the things I enjoy learning about now? What are the things that I do? And I don't think it's an expectation that just because you've worked in a certain office, that that's the thing you're gonna study. So that doesn't have to be it. I know when I came into the program, I was thinking a lot about supervision. I had only been supervising for about 2 years at the time, and that was something I was very interested in, like, how and where do we teach people to be good supervisors? Because I don't remember getting, that lesson. So, but then my research interests have really changed the more that I have read, and that's okay too. So right now, my interests include things like, as a mother, I'm very interested in how other mothers in student affairs are treated, and sort of what is their experience and how do they, continue to do good work with students, knowing that a lot of that work happens outside of a traditional 8 to 5. And then even through some of the things I've read as we started talking about activism, thinking about the white savior complex and the intersection of white identity and doing community service work. And so what does that look like, and how do we prepare students so that they're entering communities and doing good and not doing harm, and how do we prepare them? So I don't even know that I could tell you what my research is right now, other than the more I've been in this program, the more critical I've become and the more questions I have. So really it's just determining what's the thing that I can work on and get this degree with so that I can get out and continue to ask good questions.
And I can say that what students' understanding of research interest evolves quite dramatically in that first year. So I remember Jen's interview, and I remember asking her, what do you think you want to research? And she was like, I don't know, maybe white people. And now listen to her.
Still white people.
But it's just, to me, it's just an illustration of how much people learn in that first year. And so there's certainly not an expectation when you interview through the program that you sound like Joan and Jen do right now. After the first year, we expect you to sound like
some new language.
Right, to sound like this. But when you first interview for the program, it's more about what are your curiosities? What are the things that you're thinking about? What piqued your interest in doing this program in the first place? Those are the kinds of, when we say research interests, that's what we mean. What are the kinds of questions that keep coming up for you over and over again? So more like intellectual curiosity than research interests, I would say.
Real quick, so I identify as like a plus size woman. I don't really like that word, but someone whose body is larger than what it's supposed to be. And so one idea that I wanted to look into on my way in was, how does the perception of size and sizeism impact partnering or access to recreational services and use of rec services? And so while I'm still interested in that, I've chosen to direct my attention to something else because that's starting to pick up steam in another area. And so I'm going to let them have that and see what they're putting out, and then come back and say, this is a great start. I don't want to start ground up. Let me start where you are, and then let's, work on some stuff later. So just because you don't necessarily act on it doesn't mean it's not still an interest, but learning once you identify those interests, how to prioritize kind of what gets you where you need to go and what is kind of more pressing depending on the context of the institution or the larger U.S. culture or global culture, whatever your emphasis is.
Thank you.
What is the challenge in actually doing doctoral research, and what part has been difficult?
What's difficult about doctoral research? That's the question.
Time, finding the time. Sometimes just narrowing it down, because I think as I've started to turn in some drafts for my publishable prospectus, I think this is it, I've got it, and then I send it in. It's like, this is very broad, Jen. You're never gonna be able to read all this literature, and how are you going to narrow this down? And so it's funny how you think you have an idea, but then you've got to get real specific. How do you define mother? How do you define student affairs? All of these pieces, and what are you really trying to get at? And I think that's the most annoying part. If you can just get it narrowed down and get your question, then you can really start to figure out what is it that I need to read versus what do I not need to focus on. So for me right now in my process, it's trying to figure out how to exactly narrow that down and then making the time to continue to read.
Precision of language is nobody's business. And so trying to find the question, there are a lot of questions out there, but the question that you really want to narrow yourself into is really can be very challenging, particularly for somebody like me who's not a linear thinker, who can go from here to here, and it all makes sense. That's not how that translates. I'm in the dissertation proposal writing phase, and so making myself sit down to write every other day is a challenge because there's 2 years of coursework that's behind me. I'm like, I've already written, but you just literally, I make myself sit down. And so the challenging part isn't so much the thinking, because I do mostly qualitative work. It's figuring out how to construct everything together in a way that honors the people, that honors the practice, and where all of those different components align themselves. So like my publishable paper, I was able to get through the writing part in like 7 months and then collect the data. The writing up of chapters 4 and 5 about my findings and then my discussion, that took me like 4 months because I had to sit with it and write and sit with it and write and rethink and write and rethink and write and start again. And so sometimes the most challenging part is thinking that you're not where you're supposed to be. This timeline we make up, well, I'm supposed to be here. And to some extent, letting that go so that you can do good work. And so in the dissertation phase, it's also letting go of this ridiculous timeline that I had. Don't be me. Don't play yourself. Just let the work do what it needs to do, and you'll be on your time.
And you're not doing this alone. You have your advisor to read it and give you feedback. You have your community to sit down with over lunch and say, I just recently went to lunch with some colleagues and was like, I don't even know what I want to do. I want to do this and this and this. And just talking it out over that lunch really helped me come back to what is my core question. So knowing that you've got folks around you who are happy to read a draft or share a draft of what they've done, or send you an article at 6 a.m. because they thought of you when they read something. It's a community effort, and you're not doing it alone.
Let me be clear. The question was, what is challenging or what has been challenging? Was that the question?
Yeah, what is challenging in actually doing research?
Yeah.
And which part has been kind of like the most difficult?
Okay. I think the most difficult ultimately for me has been making sure that the work honors the people, and also is work that other people who are accustomed to traditional research can all understand. And so that's kind of just a tension point where I'm at, and that's okay. It just kind of is what it is. And so that might be kind of all over the place, but essentially I'm working with populations of people whose stories have historically been kind of marginalized, put to the side, not really spoken from their space. And so I want to make sure that their voices are amplified through the work, and that the work also has like either policy or practical applications, but can also further research in that area. And so trying to do all those can feel kind of overwhelming, but you have feedback from faculty, from colleagues, from people who are actually doing the work, from the people who you did the research with, who help kind of guide you in that process. And then the last part about research that can be challenging is learning that it's never going to be perfect, but it should be honorable and it should do good work. So perfection will get you caught up and have you off track and out just beside yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to be thorough. It needs to be systematic. It needs to be something that honors the people who you did it with and honors the profession that you're doing. And I'm not catching high blood pressure over research. Like, I'm not doing it.
That's what I was going to add, is the perfection piece. From a faculty perspective, that's what I see as being the most challenging part. People who pursue doctoral degrees are not low achieving people. And so with this high achieving mentality comes this desire to do it right and do it well. And there's a very heavy imposter syndrome piece that takes place, especially during that first year, and especially for people from minoritized identities. There's a large part of this. How did I get in here? Did I fool these people? Why am I here? And so that leads to people being sort of immobilized around their research because they're just afraid to do it because they are afraid they won't do it right. And the best way to learn how to do research is to do it, which is why we have the publishable paper, is to provide you the opportunity to do it once before you move into the dissertation part, so that you're sort of getting a little bit of practice in a way that's a little less high stakes than a dissertation. All right, thank you for joining us. Joan and Jen, do you have any final words of wisdom or things that you'd share as things to consider for people thinking about applying?
Get that Amazon student discount.
Yes.
Those books come pretty quick.
Yeah. Congratulations for thinking about it.
Yeah.
Take it seriously. I mean, it is a serious commitment of your time and your resources. Think about what you want from the faculty members before you get there. Think about what you're showing up with, like for real. Like for real, what is it that you're showing up with? Be it experiences, be it other types of knowledge, be it a sincere desire to do something and be able to kind of articulate what that something is, and be prepared to be challenged. One of our professors told us at one point in time, like, once you come into this space, you're always open to critique. And so critique is kind of a constant part of your life. And so it can be kind of frustrating sometimes, but it's part of the culture of what it is that we're doing. And so you'll be in the academy, whether you're working full-time or working part-time in an assistantship, or you balling out of control because your fellowship says, don't worry about working. Critique is part of it, but it's good work. And so make your work good so that you can let the critique build you up and not break you down. That sounds really bad to end on. Have a great afternoon. Have fun with your application. Get you some good friends, and make time for yourself in the process. And best wishes on your application.
And that
best
GRE.
wishes.
Yes.
And the GRE. But you're plenty smart. You're plenty of smart. Brilliant. Don't let it phase you.
So I just want to thank Joan and Jen for spending their evening. I also want to thank Quasia, who's the person behind the scenes telling us what the questions are. Hi, can you say hi?
He can wave.
This is Quasia. She's also the person she's the doctoral graduate assistant for the PhD program. So she's the person who answers most of your emails and does a lot of that work. So thank you, Quasia, for tonight. And please be in touch. Let us know what questions you have. And thank you for spending some time with us this evening.